Welcome, everybody. I am Stephanie Fritz in the Office of Christian Formation in the Presbyterian Mission Agency, PCUSA, and I am happy to welcome you to this community circle today. We have a variety of community circles that are a part of our Faith Formation Leader Connection. Also part of our Faith Formation Leader Connection might be various listening circles. We have Zoom resource calls, and we have had cohorts in the past. So this is our way to bring together educators, faith formation leaders, volunteers, youth workers, pastors, all of the above. Folks that work and serve in faith formation ministries, and we do a variety of things to help connect you to one another and also connect you to the resources that we have. I will introduce the rest of the team, but let's first begin in prayer. Gracious and loving God, we are so very grateful as we gather from coast to coast, from the United States to Canada and everything in between. We give thanks for these faith formation leaders, all they do to share the good news, to pass on the faith, and to really think about how God's love, justice, and mercy can roll. Be with us now as we enter into conversation around this table and talk about how we can best support our households and those significant adults in the lives of children and youth. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, here we are. I'm Stephanie, and I'm joined by my fantastic team. So we have Miata Wilson, and Miata's going to wave and say hello. Say hello, Miata, so your slide pops up.
Hello, friends. Glad to be with you.
And Miata is the associate in the Office of Christian Formation, and she is primarily responsible for the Faith Formation Leader Connection. And she is working hard to resource y'all, connect y'all, and think about the needs that you might have. And then we have Janet Hayes. Janet, can you say hello?
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you.
Janet is our mission specialist, and she helps keep us all together. And we're excited to have her with us. She is an excellent project manager too, and actually a really strong reason why we received this Lilly grant. So we're very grateful for her work around this particular initiative. And then we have our newest team member, Nima Cyrus Franklin, and she is our project coordinator for Around the Table. And I am going to ask Nima to spend just a couple of more minutes, extra minutes, really introducing herself and her context. And she's someone that we're excited for you all to get to know. So Nima, please share about yourself.
Good morning, all. It's good to see you and say hello. I'm grateful to be able to be in this position. It is a wonderful time to be here, especially in my own personal life and how God has led me to this place through all of the ministry opportunities I've been able to serve in. I've been working for the Presbyterian. I'm a Presbyterian, born and raised. My father is still serving in ministry after, I think it's 44 years now. He's been a Presbyterian pastor. We've been in many different places, Georgia, Kentucky, and Northern California, and now in Southern California, and where I currently reside in Los Angeles with my spouse and 2 children. And so I've been working, like I said, for the church for about 25 years in different capacities. I started actually with my love for learning about the Lord through camp and conference ministry. I grew up going to camp at Calvin Crest and at Zephyr Point, and just found myself falling in love with nature and with God's creation, and began to ask God, what am I to do in life? And so found my purpose really looking at the mountains in Zephyr Point, and hearing God's voice to me at a very young age saying, I want you to teach my people. That's what I heard then, and I still hear that now. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity. I've served in many capacities in camp and conference ministry. I've written for Abingdon Press and United Methodist Publishing House, Westminster John Knox Press. My work also includes work with our synod, the Synod of Southern California and Hawaii, and have a lot of contacts and connections there. But most recently, I was serving in my Presbytery of the Pacific, as our communications director and stated clerk. And so gained a lot of skills there and was able to still again work with God's folks there. I forgot to tell you, I passed through Atlanta, served in Atlanta also for about 8 years as the youth ministries director there, and had a wonderful experience. But we decided to come back home, and so then I began to serve in my home presbytery. But most recently, I felt God's urging for me to grow and mature in my own faith and my own formation. And so I took on a couple of other opportunities to learn. And so I've gained some certifications recently. And so now I'm a professionally trained coach, and my specialty is in anti-racist practices as well as spiritual formation. I also have done work in a certificate for somatic attachment therapy, which deals with how to feel what's actually in the body and release the trauma that's within the body. And coupled that with, I'm also a 200-hour certified yoga instructor, and look to gain more knowledge in that area, because I found with the work in somatics and spiritual practices that a lot of it we embody. And even in our faith journeys, we do a lot of head work. We think about things a lot, but I wanted to be able to bring spiritual practices and embodiment work through my faith and formation. So that yoga was teaching more about how I can help folks to have that release, that trauma release, so that we can grow and be transformed by God. And so that's really the scope of me. Sorry, I don't mean to take so long, but like I said, I've been working a long time, and just wanted you to kind of hear the breadth of where God has brought me from and where God brings me to. And I'm really excited to bring all of that experience and work and the challenges of life into this position. I have 2 kids, one 12 and one 17. And I am also working in my own home to figure out how to have deeper conversations about faith formation with my children. And so it's a passion of mine, because I'm doing it in the home myself, and want to aid those who also have that need. So God bless you all. It's good to be with you. I can't wait to be in further conversation with you and invite you to the things that will be coming. And don't hesitate to reach out. You see my email there. And I've met some of you at APSI, so I say hello again. So God bless you and God keep you.
Thanks, Nima. All right, I will share a little bit more about Nima's context within the Around the Table initiative as we go along here. So that is our team, and just a little bit of a reminder about who the Office of Christian Formation is and the ways that we serve. Our team is responsible for supporting ministries of faith formation. We're responsible for connecting leaders with resources and practices, and learning about what is new out there, and help share that with all of you. And we do that by supporting age and stage ministries through our partner associations, and also work around intergenerational ministries. So we're excited to be able to add this piece of intergenerational work to our portfolio. So here we go. So many of you might know that our initiative that we received, the grant that we received from the Lilly Endowment, is from the Christian Parenting Initiative. And our initiative is Around the Table, sharing our stories, communities of practice, sharing stories at home, at church, in the community, in the coming and the going. Our guiding scripture will be the Psalm 121:8. The Lord will protect you on your journeys, whether going or coming, from now until forever from now. I'll probably have to get better at saying that. But this is what we believe really strongly, is that this is about sharing the story. This is about being able to share these stories in our home, when we're at church together, and when we're out in the community. And if we can't talk about how we're feeling, what our hopes are, what our dreams are, how are we to talk about where we see God in working in our lives? And so we think that this holistic connection to sharing stories and supporting families, parents, significant adults, grandparents, and doing that in the home is instrumental. So around the table, you can see that there's a little speech bubble in that table, and it's all about this, how we share. These tables are both launching places and landing places. So a little bit about the scripture piece is that we understand that literally, we're moving from space to space. We're moving from spaces in our homes out into the community and into our churches, but also figuratively as well. Youth come and go, and we always know that God is with them, but the ebb and flow of our faith journeys and the questions that we're asking. So we see these tables as places to come together in a literal way or in a figurative way to really share with one another. So in this initiative, we're going to be talking about an expansive definition of all households supporting children and youth. So I'll say that again, this is an expansive definition, meaning that while it could be a household that has, 3 children and 2 parents, it in many, many cases is not. It's going to be all different sorts of makeup of families. And we try hard to use the word household because the word family can have a triggering effect to what your experience of family might be. But we're also talking about grandparents and significant adults. We're talking about those that reach out to children and youth when they might not have that stable person in their household. So we continue to learn about what an expansive definition of households is, and we'll invite you to do the same thing with us. So just a little bit about the grant. There were 77 organizations, and actually I think there's some more now, around $90 million. And there was a first round in the Christian Parenting Initiative. And so you will probably, in your context, you might know that Gen On Ministries, for instance, was in that first round. So they're further along in their process, and there are some others. The folks that are behind D365, the Passport organization, they started working in a first round. So you'll start to see stuff from those folks in some of our contexts sooner than some of our resources and materials might be released. That's a common practice with Lily. We received $1.25 million in the Presbyterian Church USA, and approximately half of that grant is for a staffing component, which is coaches, presenters, and actual staff, NEMA, and half of that grant will be for programming, training, and resources. When we were working on our proposal, we did a parent caregiver survey, caregiver being the word that Lily often used in their proposal piece. It's not quite the word that works in our context, but nonetheless, we did a survey just to see basically the heartbeat and sort of just get a pulse of what was going on out in the denomination. We had 458 responses. 68% had these children or youth in their household, and 18% were significant adults in the lives of children and youth. We asked very simple questions. It was a less than 5-minute survey. And so we asked folks how they currently engage and how they would like to engage. And here are the top responses. They are currently praying together, serving together, and asking questions about God together. And when they think about what they would like support, resources, or just more conversation about, it is how they better engage in service and advocacy together, connections with other parents or other significant adults. And they want to hear more about milestones. How do we mark those milestones that are both happening maybe in their faith lives or at home as well? So since then, we have entered into a process with Tri-Tank Experimental Laboratory. This is a young adult families project. We are doing this with our ecumenical partners and also 1001 New Worshiping Communities, which is our expression of new church experiences. So these are specifically young adults that have children in their household. So that's who we're talking about, recognizing that one of the major new things about a millennial generation is that many, of course, do not have children in their household. And of course, parents of other generations are still parenting children in their household. But this particular project is about these young adult families. So there's a few different things that we have learned that I'll share with you here. There is a second part to this study, and we're still working on what to do with the data. So you can kind of read here on your screen about what the 5 major objectives that we're exploring are. And we're basically just looking to gain some clarity about these young adults, primarily 18 to 35 or 18 to 39-year-olds in a variety of demographics and different places across the country and different denominations or folks that don't identify. So there are a couple of major findings. Major finding 1, no surprise that often religion and spirituality are not one of their top concerns, and that these nuns are parenting very differently than other generations. But along with that, we know they have told us in this study, and I'm sure we also know as we talk to this age group, is that life is hard, harder than they expected it to be. And so we'll talk a little bit more about this study, about where they're turning for to get support. And there's an increasing number of adults that are not going to have children. So overall, we just know that people in their 20s and 30s are in times of significant change, and that when we think about the impact of all these changes for parents, prospective parents, we cannot compartmentalize it. So to reach people in this time, you have to not only attend to their needs, but do so in a way that can fit in with all of the other things that are going on in their lives. So as church leaders, what we can see from this study is that it's not about what happens in the church hour and how we attend to those needs in that time, but how do we approach these households more holistically? How do we support them more holistically and recognize that what they are going through is significant? It's significant to God, and it's significant to their faith community. So we'll be working more at that study. So around the table, sharing our stories. What are we going to do? What's the purpose of our initiative? What is around the table trying to accomplish? So we have 2 main areas. We're going to support parents and caregivers, and we're going to do this through some parenting group guides that we're going to be developing. We're going to be doing this through, it says online skill building sessions. What in the world does that mean, right? But we're working on that. What we know is that households, significant adults and parents are looking to develop greater skills in how they share with their children and youth, how they interact, questions around God. They're not looking for another thing that they have to do. They're looking for the skills in which to create this atmosphere in their own homes. There will be opportunities that will be both live and both ways that parents and significant adults can get to this training or these webinars asynchronously as well. We are going to have a number of published books in partnership with Presbyterian Publishing. We're starting to work on those now. We're also working on some downloadable free resources. Some of those are in partnership with Presbyterian Publishing. I think one Of note for sure is that our Flyaway book imprint, which is our children's book imprint in the denomination, we will begin to have parent guides with each one of those books that have been published and also future ones. So if you were involved with the Psalms of Wonder project or have gotten a Psalms of Wonder, that was our first trial at a parent guide. And finally, embedded into our initiative will be emphasis on retreats. And this is a place to where we practice those skills together and connect with intergenerational community. How are we going to support faith communities? So what we're not trying to create is some alternative to being a part of a faith community. We're trying to support faith communities in holistically supporting these households. So this is where our coached cohorts are going to come into play. This is where Nima will be sharing her expertise and really heading up this part of the initiative. So there will be three different waves of cohorts. I'll talk about that in a moment, that will be coached by our trained coaches. And these cohorts are one or two faith communities. They could be traditional churches, or they could be one of our new worshiping communities that agreed to come together for a period of time, 12 to 18 months, with a trained coach and work through a process of what do our households with children and youth need? What are the primary issues that are impacting our community? And how do we best support these households? So we believe pretty strongly in this coaching process. There are other initiatives that will be putting together curriculum or workbooks and that sort of thing, and that is fine. And some of our cohorts may even use some of those pieces. But the core of what we will be doing is to help faith communities guide through this process, and that we know that ministry is contextual and varies. So while one community may really be struggling with a lot of mental health concerns in their area, another, say, downtown urban church might really be focused on how they can participate more fully in advocacy and justice issues. So we're going to be working with cohorts about what is best in their sort of arena. So alongside those cohorts, that's where our resources will start to be released, and we can use those with our cohorts. We hope to have a new digital platform within the first couple of years where you can easily find these things. We know that's been an issue in the past. And this is where we piloting our parent and caregiver groups as well. So sustainability wise, we will develop some parenting group curriculum pieces and templates so that the conversation and the support of these adults can continue. So impact is important. Impact is important to Lily, and it's important in our context as well. So how are we going to measure this impact? The coaching process itself is a way to measure impact. That is how we will know how it's going, what needs to be changed, what needs to be altered. The way that this initiative begins and the way that it ends can and will be different. If we do exactly what we wrote in our Lily initiative proposal, we will probably have not done our job. So we know that we will learn more as we interact with this initiative. So through this process, we hope that households are better equipped to share their faith with their children, have more of a holistic connection with their faith community, that this is the place that they will turn to when things get hard, as well as in times of joy and celebration and milestones. And we hope to have a regular rhythm of intergenerational retreats, becoming an intergenerational community. We hope that our faith communities will have a better understanding of how to include faith formation at home resources in their overall opportunities, better equipped to support these families, More churches and worshiping communities will have a focus on faith formation in the home. And we really want to work hard about creating these connections. This is particular to the PCUSA denomination, about having a connection between new worshiping communities, our immigrant communities, racial ethnic communities, and some of our traditional house churches that will sometimes house these communities. We think that some of those connections that we can hopefully facilitate will have a really lasting transformational impact. So when we talked to the Presbyterian Mission Agency about applying for this, we did some brainstorming and talked a little bit about what they might contribute. So in addition to the published pieces that Presbyterian Publishing will put out, and most of those will have, they'll be sold, there'll be a cost to them through the bookstore. From the PMA, we hope to have a wide variety of resources from our different offices based on their expertise. So here are just a few of those that we're going to get ready to go through a process of exploring these more. And we'll work to see what kind of digital platform these land on, and whether they're podcasts, whether they're in an app. We're working that out. So the overall timeline is 5 years. We officially launched January 1. So we're just like 5 weeks into this. Yay. And in that time frame, we have brought on Nima to be the coordinator for our cohorts and our coaches. And we've begun the process of developing the initiative, the communication around the initiative, and we're going to be diving into developing the cohorts. What I will say that is different from this slide that we presented at APSI and to what's happening now is that we will have some cohorts begin in fall of 2024, but we have made the decision to make these pilot cohorts and fewer of them. So we're working on a way to choose our first, probably anywhere from 3 to 6 cohorts that will be our pilots, and starting those in the fall. And then in early 2025, we'll launch the rest of that first wave. The goal and what we are funded for is 50 cohorts total, basically in 2 waves of 25, understanding that it may not quite work out that neatly. PPC has started production on their resources, and as I mentioned, we're working on our PMA pieces as well. So this is where we're at. By the end of April, we're going to have some information ready to how you participate in the pilot piece of the cohorts for sure. And soon after that, how you might participate in the cohorts that will start early next year. So a little bit more about how you can engage, then I'll stop sharing. We'll have some questions. So obviously, if nothing else, there's going to be some new resources for your congregations. So you're going to want to look for those. And we just encourage you to think about some of these households and families that you might not see very often, that have fallen off the map, especially since COVID. Don't forget about your grandparents, and think about how some of these new resources might be a tool for connecting to them. You can apply to be in a cohort. You can simply come to these community circles that will be held quarterly and keep up with our findings, what we learn about connecting with faith formation at home. We are going to be looking for writers, lots of writers. So if you in this room are writers, we're going to definitely want to hear from you. And you can help us be ambassadors and spread the word. I think we're all going to start hearing about a number of different initiatives. There were several at APSI that I'm excited about. And I think that we'll start to feel that energy over the next couple of years and hope some great things come out of it. You might have some questions. We do have currently a blog set up, an Around the Table blog. And until we're ready to launch a digital platform of resources, we're going to utilize this blog to update y'all on different things as we have them prepared. So I think you can subscribe to that, and then you'll get notified whenever there's a new posting to it. Okay, that was a lot of words from me. So questions, comments, concerns? What do you hope we do? What do you hope we don't do?
Fun among the four of you to look forward to implementing this a whole lot. And just a clarifying question about
Sure.
the retreats that you mentioned,
Yes.
and whether those were going to be in person, online, both.
Very good question. Thank you. So a core of the cohorts is that they will commit to having an intergenerational retreat during their cohort process. We'll be providing for those cohorts a template of a retreat, curriculum/template. I just use the word template because all retreats have a different scheduling and depends on your traditions and where you're located. So that is most certainly an in-person retreat that will happen. Then that template is not going to be top secret. We'll eventually release it to anybody that would like to have that intergenerational experience. The cohorts will receive a stipend also to hold that retreat. But we have already started talking about what other kinds of resources that include retreats will look like. Household retreats, online retreats, all of those are an important part of this intergenerational connection. So I think you're going to see a little bit of all of the above. But the retreat is very important to the cohorts.
And just a quick follow-up, you think those initial retreats will be designed for just the adults or adults with dependents?
Well, the additional ones, yes, so certainly the cohort one is intergenerational. But I certainly could see as part of our parenting groups as we start to, that's a great point, right? Is there often is a need for our parents and significant adults to have time to really build their skills and their confidence. So I could see that happening. I think that's great feedback for us to keep in mind. Roberta.
From the slides and the list, you have more than to say grace over and to keep you busy. I'm wondering though, are there going to be intentional ways to coordinate with other denominations and other people that have received these grants in some intentional way?
We have at least one meeting on the calendar, for sure. And part of what Lily does with these large initiatives is they give a whole other bucket of money to another organization. And it's called Strengthening Children. What is that? What has worded, right, Janet? Strengthening Children. It's in Indiana. And so this organization is tasked with organizing all the grant recipients. And we have regular gatherings with one another and one in person a year. So at the end of October, Nima and I will head to Indiana and attend one of those. And that happens each of the 5 years. So yeah, I think we're going to have an opportunity. I was on a call a couple of weeks ago with an Episcopalian leader. I was like, oh, well, that's an exciting little thing that you've got going on there. I can't wait to hear more about that. So I do think that one of the advantages of us as a denomination receiving this initiative is that we're not really in competition. So little organizations might be doing a very specific thing, right? And they may need to sell it, or it's part of just who they are as an organization. Because we've chosen the approach of coaching and a process-oriented approach, it'll be fun to use all of these different other initiatives that come out. So I know that the Episcopalians have several, for instance, one of them being a pilgrimage piece that I'm excited to learn more about. Yeah. And then APSI, several of the denominations at APSI also have this grant. So I hope that we'll work with them as well.
Kim has
Looks
her
like-
hand up.
Oh, Kathleen put a link. I'm not sure, Janet, I'm not sure if that's what that is. Is that,
I
that's
think
not our,
I think that's something completely different. And really, it's the grant recipients that are meeting and sharing. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily published outward.
right. Yeah.
Kim Ness has her hand up.
Oh, hi, Kim.
Hey, Stephanie. The what did you call it? The think tank, the tiny tank, the young adult
Tri-tank. Tri-tank.
Tri-tank.
Yes.
Is really interesting. A lot of our Sunday school classes of older adults, they have focused so much on their nuns, their children. Is there any way that that will interact with the cohorts?
That
I guess that's the
research.
question. Yeah, the
Yeah.
research or even the
Yeah.
participants in the study that that project is working on.
So I think those that answered the study aren't necessarily people we know, right?
Okay.
Like the Tri-tank was hired to, so that's a good question. I'm not sure that we're going to get human samples. I think that's kind of what you're asking, right?
Yeah, so this is just
Um,
going to be numbers, not case studies.
It's numbers and demographics, but there is a second wave coming, and I will ask that question as we go into the second. They're going to do a second part to the study.
Okay.
And we did have a little bit of discussion about focus groups or conversations. So there's a possibility that we might be able to actually gather up human beings.
Yeah. Okay. No,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
thanks.
Anybody else?
Stephanie, I'm
Yes. Hi,
wondering,
Sarah Lee.
out in my part of the world where Presbyterian congregations are few and far between, I'm wondering, are there going to be opportunities for, I'm thinking of 4 congregations we have.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them they're all strung out along Interstate 27 from north to south. And none of them have many children or young people. And one congregation has 1 young family with two young children, and that's it. But would there be opportunities for regional groupings to work together on something like this?
Yeah, in fact, a cohort is actually going to be considered, we're going to encourage 2 communities at least to work together, just so that we can cover more ground, we can have more funding. So we would encourage that. We're probably not going to have more than 10-ish. You know, Nima and I are working out all these details, but 10 people, leaders in the actual cohort. But if that means that that's 4 congregations and they're willing to work together, I don't see any reason why they could not.
Okay.
It is, it's a commitment. It will be a commitment to thinking about things in a new way. And it will be a commitment to doing some work on their house. So this isn't going to be for everybody. What will be for everybody is what we learn out of it, right? We can all learn what happens, but those congregations and new worshiping communities and faith communities that choose to be part of the cohort process, it's not going to be much of a financial commitment. There'll be some, but it's mostly going to be a commitment to doing the transformative work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Just scan one last time. I know Janet's going to put a little survey in the chat. So as we learn more about measuring impact, we want to know in real time if what we've talked about in a particular session is something that struck a chord with you and what you would like to hear more about. So we've committed to measuring that impact within an event. So I am going to give you a minute or so to open up that document, especially, you know, a chance to sort of digest what you've heard and think about how you might be more involved. So we'd love for you to fill that out. And while I give you a minute or so to do that, if there's anybody that comes up with something they'd like to say, just go ahead and raise your hand. So Nima, I'm gonna see if I can put you on the spot just a tiny tad bit. And maybe if you want to just share with the group sort of what you're most excited about when thinking about the work that these cohorts and church leaders can do together.
You know, to be quite fair and honest, I'm excited about it all. I love learning and the opportunity to serve where God's people feel there is need. And I just know through my own experience, through the pandemic and the lockdown time, and all of those folks that I interacted with during that time, we just found that, you know, those of us who have been in churches for all of our lives, going to Sunday school, even those of us who are teaching, even those of us who are ordained, were found in the midst of a challenge with talking about the Odyssey. Where's God in the middle of all of this? And how to honestly and richly engage the questions of the children in our care. The young people who are dealing with the mass shootings that were going on in their communities and schools, the racial tension within our country, the political things going on. And they're trying to hear these words spoken in worship. And then they come home with questions about, okay, we say that God is good and all of that's going on, and how do we really see God in the midst of all of this angst and violence that we see in our world? And what's our response? That was some of the things that I heard my kids asking. And so I think for me, this is just so exciting to be able to put hands and feet really to the needs right now that our caregivers, those who are supporting young people, in this life, because I work with a lot of young adults and nuns in my off-service hours, and I think about a lot of the pain that they've experienced and just how they're disconnecting from the congregational life, and what are some ways that we can re-engage these young folks who find themselves with children or who are in the position to care for those. A lot of educators who are working with children, you know, that sort of thing. How do we help? How do we help assist so that we can bring in a new generation of believers? I mean, that's the goal of our mission as Christian folks, is to pass on the words of Jesus and the gospel. And so we can, you know, live out that faith and that call within our current contexts. So I think, you know, just it's the learning that we'll do together. There's not an expert in this. Otherwise, why would Lily have granted us this money? And so it is us really doing the work within our particular ministries and contexts, because it'll be different for us all, but to share how we're working and learning together to do God's work and God's ministry in the lives of our members and the folks that we reach. So I hope that answered it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm here.
I just thank you, Nima. I wanted just to, you know, hear a little bit more and hopefully get you all excited about the things that we're about to learn together. I mean, you know, as I said, at the very least, you're going to start to be able to hear about how communities are transforming and what they're learning together. So hope that you'll all be excited to hear about that. What can you expect from us over the next few months? We have a lot of work to do. So we're gonna be doing that work, and gathering people and talking to people and listening to people and writing some things and saying some things. And I mentioned that by the end of April, you should expect to hear a lot more about how you might start to engage in the first step. But this is a, more of a marathon, not necessarily a race. And we do have a 5-year period to really start to engage in all of this. So follow our blog, the little survey. Hopefully, if you had interest in maybe writing or some of the other ways, you might have put that in there. If not, please shoot us an email. And if you have additional questions, and we're going to get started. Yes. Oh, you had a different way for everybody to. Yes. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes. And Stephanie, I just wanted to say 2 things before we close. I wanted to also invite those of you to connect with us, because one of the things that we're working on currently are just solidifying the topics and the skills that we will help to build within these cohorts. And so I'm wondering if you have any particular skills that you see or have heard from the people that you serve that they have need for. We want to make sure that we're really working to feed and to enrich those with what they really are looking and seeking for through joining a cohort, or just the work that we will hopefully present at the end of this, what we've learned through this process. So I invite you to contact us. And I think Janet had that in. Maybe our emails are there somewhere. I know it was in the slides. But I also wanted to share with you, I will be reaching out to you in an email just to share that those of you who have interest, we are trying to make sure that we are including you into our new database, something that we're starting now. That database does require a 2-step authentication. So I'll explain this in my email when I send it out to you, but just know that we're going to be using the Planning Center to organize ourselves around this effort so that we can have a landing page and place where all of our documents, all of the materials are held in one particular space. So if you see a mass email coming from me or one of us from our church center, please know that that's what that is. You'll see our logo, you'll see the Presbyterian logo, but just know that we're beginning to communicate in a more organized way that we can over time be able to measure, to see how we're connecting with folks and the impact that we're making on folks' lives. So just know that that's coming. So thank you so much. I don't want to prolong it, but thanks for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Hi,
Priscilla. Yeah.
Well, I was just starting to write it down. One of the skills, and you put this in your hopper, however, is I've discovered we have a little parent group that meets periodically. They're not very consistent, but when we talk about this, the thing they're most uncomfortable with is like any kind of language. They're not comfortable with the language about seeing God in everyday life. They don't know how to articulate that. And they think that you have to have a seminary degree in order to say the word theology with any kind of credibility. And so something around just what are the ways to talk about God's presence that aren't, as one parent said to me, that don't come across as preachy, because, we don't want to be preached at, but a way that makes it just part of everyday language that, you look at the sky and you go, wow, that is a beautiful blue sky. God must like the color blue. But somehow or other, I just find they're mostly uncomfortable with language. They don't know how to talk about God. And I don't know how you build that into a skill set or whatever, but that's your job, not mine.
Thanks, Priscilla. Yeah, language, I think, is a big one. We talk a lot about good language around justice issues too, just teaching those words as well. So. Okay. Right. Well, please follow us along. Head to the blog or send us an email, and we will have another. Did we schedule the next one, Janet? We probably didn't yet, right? we're committed to these quarterly, but I'm not sure that we scheduled the next one yet. So we should be doing that right about the time we're ready to look for our cohort pilots. So look to hear from us again around 3 or so months from now. All right. Bye, everybody. Peace be with you.